All right, so today we've got a picture that I took while I was riding bikes with my family, probably a couple of years ago. And that's my oldest son on the right. And yeah, so it's a picture that I put away, just kind of waiting for the right moment to take it out. And I've wanted to paint it for a really long time. And I think I have like a bunch of files that I've saved over the years that sometimes I'm not ready to paint them, or I just get drawn into other paintings. So I think this is a good one to pull out, and I feel up to the challenge. So you know, it's interesting because in this picture, what are the main focal points? Obviously, the bike riders. Whenever there's people, right, in a picture, like they're going to be central to the image. But I like this image because it's the people's backs, right? It's not faces. It's something that is definitely more manageable in a short amount of time. But um, I don't know. What do you see, Mac, in this picture?
Yeah, I agree. There's the people, of course, and they're in movement, and also there's this pavement that's diminishing to a point. So it's got a real, it's really taking us right. They're going somewhere, and it's like you can see where they're going. So um, and there's a lot of light in the background, and it's more sort of darker in the foreground. Um, and then the peop the humans are at different perspectives and scale. So to me, like my challenge would be how am I going to make that realistic? That's what I would think to myself.
Right. Yeah, all good observations. Um, well stated. um, so a couple of things I would notice. Um, you rightly pointed out the perspective. We have at least the pavement, the road, helps provide those perspective lines, right? So on the left side, we have the left edge of the street going like this. You know, I'm just gonna I'm gonna make this the horizon here, and that's the left side, and then the right side. It's a pretty wide angle. So if I bring the pencil over here, it looks like this. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna just put a dot there, so I'll just bring my hand towards the dot. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're gonna go over it with paint anyway.
yeah,
But you just want to get the direction, because those lines also help with those three lines, the horizon and these two lines that are going into the distance. We can also look at the angle of the heads, and
mm,
conveniently, it's the three people are um, like in this angle, right? So
yeah.
so we know it's roughly like kind of going like this, right? So the top of the head
Hmm.
is going to be here. And that also helps inform kind of the proportions. Um,
Hmm. You're not cropping this one, right? You're just doing it
Yeah, I'm doing it straight because I already cropped it in the computer, so that I know this image fits a 9 by 12 dimension. So we know the bottom edge of the, the right edge of the road is approximately, it actually lines up with the tops of the wheels. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So
I see that.
the challenge here is kind of, okay, where are the wheels in relation to his body, and also, you know, the bottoms of the wheels, they're going to line up in a way so that where we can draw another perspective line. It's kind of like this. So if I draw these wheels very roughly, like it's like this, you know, it looks really small actually. And then the back wheel, and just not giving too much distance between them. You know, you kind of have to fight. You kind of have to fight your own expectations of what like a wheel looks like, and so when we're looking at wheels from the side, from an angle, they become more and more oval, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you kind of have to fight your urge to make them circles.
Yes.
All right, so and my wife's bike, her bike is in a different lane than his, so the perspective shifts slightly, maybe not noticeably enough here, but it's just good to know. You know, if my son's bike here, if they were all lined up directly right behind each other, it'd be relatively simple as long as our wheels were actually like the same size. You know, we could just follow these same lines of perspective and make the wheels in between these two converging lines.
Mm-hmm.
But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and go from the top of my wife's back wheel to the horizon. And like that angle, it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're far away, the wheel is like really, really like a, what do you call that? I'm not even sure what to call that. I mean, it's like a really, really slim oval. And the wheels will look really close together, you know, like that.
She's the one in the dark with the backpack.
Yeah. So, and then my other son's bike, he's in a different lane. And he's not straight up and down with the horizon. Like, well, I guess he could be actually straight up and down.
Yeah,
And
closer.
they're not at the same distance from the horizon, but pretty close. Like he's maybe a little further ahead than her, like maybe a foot.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, his wheel will end kind of at that angle. And I'm just going to block him in like really rough, like rectangle shape for his body right now. All right. Returning back to my older son, I actually think he's the more interesting part of this. All right, so to kind of get reference points here, the handlebar kind of sticks out like this. And then it goes down, it connects with the that stem. All right, so we have the, what do you call that in the middle?
The fork?
Is that what it is? Or the piece that goes through the wheel, that goes through the wheel to the other side?
Oh, the spoke.
The spoke?
No, the spoke. No, that's not the spoke. That's the hub.
The hub? Okay.
Yeah,
And I'm also
the spokes come
noticing,
out of the hub.
uh-huh. And I'm noticing lines here for the bars that connect from that main stem going down to the back wheel. All right. And there's another one on the other side. All right. His arm is pretty straight, like, you know, because he's rigid there, right?
Yeah.
And his arms, they'll come to a point down here where his hand is gripping. The shirt sleeve is hugging pretty tightly. The shirt's coming down, almost straight down. All right, and then the seat here is like pretty close to the edge of the shirt. Notice how I'm also holding the pencil like this because I want to stay loose and limber and
Yeah, I do.
not commit myself too much in terms of lines and the sketching. And basically, you know, I'm okay with drawing over the lines that I put down, you know, because sometimes you just have to you have to draw the skeleton, literally the skeleton, or the contours and the direction of things. And then you put them down first as like undergirding, and then you fill in more of it on top of it.
Mm.
Okay, so I'm noticing his helmet is more like this. And his back is angling down. All right. I think that's okay. And then my wife, I'm going to do, like, I'm looking at the big objects, the big shapes. Obviously the backpack. And then her body, it's just going to be mostly black. And helmets make their heads look a lot bigger. So I'm going to kind of accentuate the helmet. And noticing that there's going to be bright spots on the helmets, on the top left of each helmet. And then my younger son, this is the relatively easier shape. Yeah. Maybe tough to convey that he's bent over. So the way we do that is you shorten his neck. So it makes him look smaller there, like his head is further in the front. And actually, I'm going to use the eraser here because I want to make that part flat, the bottom of it. The flattening the bottom makes it look like he's.
Is his shirt catching more light than his than below his shirt?
Yeah.
Or the bottom half of his shirt seems darker?
Yeah.
If that might be because he's leaning forward a bit.
That's right.
Sure.
So he's like bent over. Yeah. So when we paint this, you know, some of it'll be indicated by the darker lines. I'm sorry, the shadowing on his left and right, under his left and right arms. That will indicate that his arms are, you know, splayed out in front of him. So I'm just going to zoom in on this picture a little bit. I want to get this helmet, just the shape of it, a little bit more clear. Just trying to indicate for myself what I should leave, or what I should make sure you know, in order to indicate that it's a helmet and not just like messy hair. There's some dark areas here. There's 2 points up here that kind of the cavities, they end in points there. There's another cavity here. There's a cavity here that's just almost basically pure black. And you know, it's okay if I'm shading it in a little bit because it's all going to get covered up anyway. And then, you know, the thing that really helps the viewer understand the direction and where the face is and where they're looking is catching the lobe, the top of the ear. Oh, he's wearing a mask too, actually. Huh.
Yeah, I can't hardly see that.
Yeah, but I'm not going to worry too much about the mask. Yeah, there's some light here that I want to make sure I leave space for. And I'm erasing because I have too many lines here that might just make it look too messy. There's a stretch, there's a piece right there that needs to be reflective or have white. All right. And then just generally some of the tree trunks that I want to capture. We've got a tall one here. Paying attention to the edge of the trees line up at the edge where the I guess it's a shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as you mentioned before, it's definitely it's very bright to the top left. So I think it'd be a good idea to leave space for the white there. So I'm actually going to outline the brightest spots that I see. And just to remind myself to keep those as white as possible. Also, the area that's in the distance beyond his head, I should leave white too. And then maybe this area, yeah. So white, I'm actually putting a W in there to remind myself which ones are the white areas.
Mm-hmm.
Very lightly, so I can erase that. Yeah, and there's a bunch of leaves here. These are very abstract because it's all blurry because we're moving. If I had some liquid mask, actually maybe I'll all right, I gotta be quick about this because when you use liquid mask, if you use a regular brush, it gets stuck on the hairs. So I'm gonna see if I'm gonna use another type of instrument, and I'm just looking for it right now. Actually, I will use the edge of a knife here. So this is it's by Schminke. It's called Rubble Crep. And I'm just gonna dab a little bit. That might be too big, but they should get bigger as they come closer to us, towards the bottom of the page. And I'm just really just dabbing. It dries pretty fast.
So you paint over that,
Yeah.
and then you remove it, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after you put it down, you wait for it to dry, just a couple minutes. And then you can paint over it. Once the paint is dry, then you go in and just remove this like rubber cement.
And then you just have the white of the paper, which indicates the leaves.
Yeah. Actually, what I'll do is also the top of his helmet. This will be convenient for doing that. So unless you use a really fine like metal tip, it's not going to be exact. So sometimes you just have to be willing to cover up a little bit more because how you're putting it down is not going to be exact enough. But then you can use darker paint to just shape it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the possibilities here are pretty endless. Like I can use this to fill in, reserve white space in a number of different spots. You know, if if you really want it to be super detailed, this is the way to make sure you're leaving all the right areas for detail. All right. I actually didn't do the sky up here, but I think it'll be okay. So as I'm looking at the greens here, I see kind of a blend beginning with, at the whitest parts, I see some brighter yellowish greens moving into darker. And then as it gets closer, as the foliage gets thicker and closer to the road where the shadows are, it's a much darker, cooler green. But there are, brighter passages of trees in the background, which I'll try to capture. Yeah, so spray my paints. I'm gonna go ahead and wet this area here because I want some like more diffused edges, softer edges around these white areas. At first, there will be like some hard edges that I need to put on top of the white.
Uh-huh. So wet on wet for the softer edges.
Yeah.
It took longer to draw with the figures and the perspective.
Definitely. So I'm using my yellow here first, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of this green. Gonna get some passages in here, pretty, with that same yellow green mixture. Notice how I've already gone over some of the liquid mask up here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna go in with a little darker green now. I'm doing these in layers of progressively darkening greens. Eventually I'll get to the much cooler
Mm-hmm.
greens. Yeah, doing foliage in the distance can be tricky here because there's some pretty bright areas in the back, and then mixed in there are there's bright, and then there's also kind of like warmish and then cooler greens here on the left.
Mm.
Just gonna try doing a phthalo green here. I mean phthalo blue mixed with my green. See how that works. It's to give the impression of some shadows in some areas that are in the shade.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I covered a little bit too much on the bottom there. Should have kept that a little bit more open because the grass is yellower down there. So I'm just lifting
Mm-hmm.
that some of that out so you can see more of the grass.
Yeah, that helps with the perspective too.
Yeah. I'm going to leave that area. I'm going to leave that area alone right now. I'm going to move to the right. Um, I originally thought about doing the figures first, but then once I started doing this, I just, for some reason, I felt drawn to doing the background. So,
Okay.
so bear with me as I work on the background first. Um,
Not a problem. That's more of the phthalo blue.
yeah, but um, I need to use some of this green too first in some of these areas.
Was that the perylene?
This is sap green, so it's warmer.
Sap green.
Yeah. So eventually I'm going to get cooler and cooler. But this is like a darker, um, it's a darker green than what I've been using. And then I'll eventually get I'm sorry, it's more saturated of a green, and then I'll get cooler in sort of my next pass. This helps give it some depth as I do these layers. Yeah, sometimes you just need to like fill in these areas. I'm going to go back in and use the cooler greens to provide more definition. Go back up here a little bit.
Is this in New York?
Upstate, yeah. I think it was near Poughkeepsie.
Okay.
And then let's go. I'm going to try this ultramarine blue, add it to the green. Just kind of experimenting here, using the greens as the base for the trunks.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of just blocking out the composition, so I know later on where to accentuate some of these trunks, where things sit in relation to each other. I'm gonna go with a little bit more ultramarine blue, mix it in, just be pretty liberal about that. All right, let me turn to the figures because time is definitely ticking. Actually, I'm gonna do the browns, or my typical yellow ochre, burnt sienna go-tos to do the leaves. So I'm going to deal with the different colors of the leaves by laying down a brighter color first, which would be my yellow ochre. So when you've put down liquid mask, you don't have to worry as much about accidentally going over covering areas you don't want to cover. But
yeah, I see that.
Yeah, but sometimes I forget where I put it in the first place. So, um, and then go to the burnt sienna, just kind of dab it into it. So there's a little bit of, actually that's good for getting the color in there, the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
You want some of the under that first layer to be peeking through, because that under layer is kind of basically implying the leaves that are piled up. And if I go in with a little bit of ultramarine blue to the darkest areas here, that helps, feels like shadows more.
Mm-hmm.
All right, figures. I'm going to do Ian, my youngest, first. I'm going to try this cerulean blue, which I think probably matches his shirt pretty well. And I'm just gonna wet that. I'm gonna wet his shirt first. It's a small area, but I can go in with some Payne's Gray. Actually, his whole arm is pretty dark there.
Mm-hmm.
There. And I'm going to try to do my wife's backpack. I'm going to start with some yellow. The top edge of the top part of the backpack looks yellow to me.
Did you get much feedback from people seeing these work that you've done as demonstrations, and how they are they noticing any like you talk about somehow it gives you a sense of freedom and making these different choices, and just wondering if people are picking up on any of that.
Not in terms of like comments on the videos, but definitely when I'm doing this live in class, it's a different, because it took a little while. People didn't see me do that until you left, actually, and I started doing this with you. So I think it might be a little intimidating still for some people, but I'm glad they're able to see, like part of the benefit of painting like this is that you as a observer, and me as the person doing it, we're actually experimenting a ton here and doing so much in a short amount of time that you're getting to see like what happens if you do A to B, and then what about C to D, and then you're getting to see the results so quickly in a way that most people don't get to do, right? Because either from a little insecurity or fear of the unknown, but just the act of boldly putting something down, combining colors, filling out a shape, without really knowing what's going to happen, it's a great way to learn how things interact, and it helps build your repertoire. It's like reps too, you know. So I think it's a great. It's really become a great routine for me, I think, in that way.
And what about the subscribers seeing the finished work, but they didn't see the process? Have you had any feedback on that?
Not a lot. I mean, I would say like people who follow me in general probably aren't really big on YouTube, like users of YouTube. And so
Yeah.
honestly, I haven't really promoted these videos too much. I will in the near future, because it's also been a nice kind of experience for me to try and figure out where do I want to take this. But
Yeah, I was thinking more like, subscribers have seen your finished work before. You'll send that out to them,
oh,
and
yeah,
then
uh-huh,
and so now they're seeing like this demo work in which you're, like you just said, you're making all these choices, you're doing it, at this amount of time, and I'm just wondering if they're like, oh, that's interesting how um that looks compared to maybe some of the things I've seen before. I was just curious if you had any feedback.
no, nothing concrete yet.
I think it's super helpful, even if you can't. I mean, I can't, just do what you do, of course. You have years and years of practice. So, but it just is like, I'm very visual, and some people, maybe if you're not as visual, but if you're a visual person, it just really helps to see, because you can read that in a book, and it wouldn't just make as much sense to me
Right.
as when I see it. When I see it, it's like, oh, okay. I may not be able to actually do that, but I would try it,
Yeah.
and then I'll be like, oh, okay, that was harder than it looked.
Right.
I think it's got an element of expressiveness too.
This painting, or you mean,
Not just this painting, but just the process,
yeah.
I love all the color in this one. This one's got a lot of nice color.
Yeah, I do too. So here is where, it can be tough, but there's a lot of opportunities here to be really expressive. I didn't even notice there's like kind of this bright quality here on the back tire,
Yeah, uh-huh.
which will be fun to kind of leave. But yeah, there's a lot of movement. It's hard because you have to be willing to just um, really let go, like I keep saying. Um, Let go of preconceived notions, but also go with what you think is happening.
This is where the realistic versus the expressive, or I don't know what the words you use, but this is where those decisions really start to happen right here,
Yeah.
don't they? What's your brush there? Is that a 6 or an 8?
This is a 10.
Well, that's a 10. Wow.
It
Did some pretty fine work with that 10.
has a nice point to it. All right, I'm gonna do the ground. I'm just gonna let some things blend in here, even though I just put some of that paint down. I'm gonna let it run a little bit.
Was that like feel like motion to you, or?
It can, but I just realized, if I do that, I can always go back in and add some more definition if I need to. But this way,
Sharpen it.
letting things blend in together feels more, I don't know, just feels more lively, feels more organic.
Oh, now I see the masking coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm almost kind of like destroying it on purpose just to see what happens.
Mm.
Blending it all together. I don't want this sharp line here. Because it's the paper's still moist, so you can still kind of fiddle with it a little bit. Another principle that kind of demonstrating too is when you have darks in an image, it feels more organic when the darks connect with each other. So the idea is like when you're doing a portrait, like this is something I learned in my portraiture class. It feels more natural and realistic when the shadows on the face actually connect. And I've observed that the same thing happens when you're doing a landscape.
So it's like they're coming from, like they're a shadow from a tree or a shadow from a person. So they have that's more organic.
I think it's more of that in nature or in real life, these like dark things don't just appear out of nowhere. They're they're
Hmm.
they're they're dark because they're part of it is in the light, part's not, um, and like things aren't as separate from each other as we might make them when we first learn to draw and um, make figures, and so um, yeah, so it's interesting because even with in a portrait in a live model situation where you're painting what's in front of you, even if it feels like the darks don't connect, connecting them actually makes a difference, which is really interesting.
Mm. Well, it is. Do you ever go in over something you've painted and do more drawing, adding pencil or pen or anything?
Very rarely, just because it's pen I've done just to like maybe accentuate a sign or something like a billboard or you know um, I've done
Yeah.
that maybe once with a pen, but overall, no, I'm not going back in.
And this is the part you tend to like in the painting where I think this dark connecting, it just really brings it into focus.
Oh yeah,
I know you talk about this part as the part where you feel like
yeah,
fun and
yeah, that's right. Notice also as you go into the distance, the darks don't feel as dark, and you can address that by using a smaller brush or just diluting the paint a little bit more so there's a little bit more water. Like this trunk started out too dark, but I'm diluting it a little bit. That gives the illusion of like it's being covered by other foliage.
mm,
Um,
hmm.
so that's one thing to pay attention to. Kind of just adding dark areas here throughout. All right, so some
So
of this.
the shirt is the negative space at this point, right?
What? Oh yeah.
The sh- yeah.
See, now that it's dried a bit, I'm going to go in and just add a little bit of definition to some of these things,
Mm.
and it will really help it feel finished. even if I don't do much of the detail, like you're just hinting at things.
Mm-hmm.
So once it dries a little bit more, I'm going to rub off the liquid mask, and that'll be fun to watch, I think. I'm using a smaller brush right now, just to be a little bit more
Is that a
exact.
6?
This is a, yeah, 6. I'm adding some diffused areas here to like
Mm,
get some shadow, blended
yeah.
areas of the shirt without these hard edges.
Yeah. I remember you did that on the cap of the Times Square one. It
Yeah.
makes it feel like a fabric, like a texture.
So sometimes you want to, in terms of the negative space, you want to get the background. Sometimes defining the background more will just help with
Uh-huh.
the shape, right? Like the shape of his shoulder is not, it's not accurate here, but um, actually maybe what I'll do is I'll try to lift this out, see if I can correct that a little bit. Actually, I should have done gray all over all of this, and I'm gonna do that right now. Um, all right. I'm gonna lift out this area of his hand over here. I should have left brighter.
Mm.
And I'll lift that out, it'll dry, and then once it's dry, I will add some shadows to give it more definition.
Mm-hmm.
Soften these a little bit. We want to have a little bit more blending going on here. I'm adding a darker blue here, the bottom of his shirt. Yeah.
Hey, Katie.
Hi.
How'd your day go? I'm watching Francis.
Hi,
Oh,
Katie.
you're in Coffin?
Francis says hi.
Oh, sorry to bother.
No worries.
Are you out walking, my love, or are you?
No, I'm next door. I'm gonna go whenever he's through.
Okay.
You want to go?
Text. Yeah, I think I might come with you. So text me when you're
Okay.
close, and I'll meet you over there.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for hanging in there. I know we went over, but I want to show you what it's like.
That's fine. I have more time. I have more time.
Okay.
These days there's more light.
Just give it another minute here, and then I'm going to remove the liquid mask. Always more I could fiddle with too. I'm going to take the liquid mask off his helmet. So it's very simple. There wasn't
It's
much
like
there.
it creates negative space, right?
Yeah. I'm going to take it off of the back wheel here because there's like some words on the top of that room.
Yeah. Wow, it's really amazing what it does. God. It's like instant negative space.
Oh. Gotta wait for some of this to dry longer. Yeah. Doesn't look that bad actually right there. So like,
I really like what it did for the helmet and the bicycle. Amazing.
yeah. So now I'm gonna go in with my 6. Keep touching up a little bit. Because now that we have these really well-defined white areas, I can go in here. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Just hinting at the bicycle chain there. And then I got his shoes here. And then I'm going to just add a slight hint of yellow ochre to some of these spots that are leaves. Not all of them, because some of them actually look more like white. Find ways to fill in some of the white that was. Yeah, so I really love filling in these like small details at the end.
Mm. Does it feel like you're really bringing it to life?
Yeah. Just gonna add some blue to his shoe, and then this middle area I'm gonna have to fix a little bit later, but I feel like it's at a pretty good place.
Very cool, Francis.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
Man, so enjoy it.
Hope you learned something.
I'm sure I did. I enjoyed myself. That's worth a lot.
All right. Any questions?
I would be interested to see what you go in to fix. Just out of curiosity. I have some ideas of my own, and I'll be curious to see what you do.
Okay. I mean, some
So
of it's just I feel like I'm not completely finished yet, but
yeah, yeah.
cool.
No, it was really cool to see the masking. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
really great.
Well,
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
I'll post this online and then yeah, we'll do this again next week.